welcome back to Chatting the Podcast with your girl, Nala Nijari. And I'm so excited for today's episode, y'all. Today, we are moving past influences and moving towards generational shifts, right? And this is all about real talk from real people with real perspectives, and we're having the conversations that matter. That's what we all about, and that's what we're gonna do. And today, in terms of our segment for generational shifts, we're gonna touch on willingness to learn and seek opportunity, because I feel like a lot of people want the opportunity, right? But they don't want to take those steps to get there. So let's talk about that willingness to get to where you want to be. And where else should we start? For our first guest, my mentor, my friend, the woman who makes it all happen, Miss Nia Pope.
Hi, guys.
I'll let you kind of talk about yourself a little bit, what you do, but and like some of your accomplishments in terms of where you've gone since you've graduated and all that kind of stuff real quick.
Okay. So, hey, y'all. I'm Nia the Queen on Instagram. Quick plug. I am an alumna of Delaware State University, class of 2022, big 22 in the house. And I studied mass communications with a double concentration in digital media production and public relations and advertising at Delaware State, in the mass communications. Shout out Mass Comm.
Period.
I've been doing kind of mass communications since high school.
She said kind of mass communications, like she didn't work for the NFL.
I've been doing I started mass communications in high school. I went to a technical high school, Polytech. Shout out anybody listening from Polytech, if anybody's listening. But I went to Polytech and got my start there with, the camera work and Photoshop and in front of the camera and behind the camera, and kind of fell in love with it there.
Right.
And then transitioned to Delaware State. Where
took it to the next level.
I took it to the next level. I kind of had to find my niche of what I wanted to do. I, kind of went in there thinking I was going to do news, and then didn't really like news. So now I've kind of found my niche, which I've realized I've had since high school, which is sports. Mm-hmm. And so I currently now am a production assistant at the NFL Films.
Period.
Let's say production assistant / associate producer, because
/ gets it done.
At the end of the day, a producer is a producer, whether you're an assistant or a regular producer. You're all pretty much doing the same thing. You're assisting with productions and, helping the final product be made. So
And so what are some of the shows, like, just real quick, especially for our NFL Films fans, what are some shows that you've worked on in the midst of before, being here right after college with NFL Films?
Okay, so starting off at NFL, I started off working on Hard Knocks, HBO's Hard Knocks. I did Hard Knocks in season, not the one during the summer with the Detroit Lions. For anybody who's seen it, that's the first thing people say. I did the Hard Knocks season last year with the Arizona Cardinals, and then transitioned into helping out with some top 100, worked heavily on 30 for 30. That should be coming out pretty soon. I don't know when it's coming out, but 30 for 30 is going to be coming out on ESPN. We covered Reggie White, football legend. Mm-hmm. And then, I touched a little bit on the new Netflix documentary that just came out, Quarterback, that covered Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But I touched a little bit on that one as well.
So you got a nice little resume. One thing you didn't put in there, she's a sports Emmy winner as well.
Oh, yes.
So you've worked to get to where you are today. And that's one thing I can say about you that I know, the credentials look great, but I know what it took to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about just taking it to that next level. Like, what was the key for you to being able to say, this is what I want to do, or this is where I want to go, and how did you just attack it head on?
I would say the biggest key for me in attacking everything head on was just like trying things.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people join mass communications and they say, okay, well, I might want to be in front of the TV and I might want to be doing this, but like mass communications, even though broad, it's so specific.
Yes.
So you kind of have to figure out, what road and what like
Yeah.
avenue you want to take with mass communications. And for me, I guess that was just like trying everything, not
Yep.
saying no to nothing like particular. If
Big,
it's like
small, everything.
if it's like a
Yeah.
football game, you know, at Dell State, they'd ask me to cover football games. And even though I'd never been to a Dell State football games, all 3-4 years I went to college, my senior year, I was at every single one. So like,
And it paid off.
It did. It paid off. But like, you know, that's just one of the things, just like taking the opportunity. What
When
else
it
are
comes.
what else are you doing
Right.
that's like could be better than spending one Saturday setting up for football and being
Yes.
able to, you know, be there on the
Yes.
field and, you know, with the rest of the team.
And a lot of people see, like, if they go on your Instagram, they see, you know, you work for the NFL, you do all this, but they don't know the work that it took to get there. Because I think what a lot of people see success, you don't see the late nights. You don't see, like, before any of my podcast episodes, I'm not just coming up here and just like, okay, I'm gonna just chat and see what happens. Like, I do my research, I take my time, you know, because that is what shows that you're serious. And I feel like it ultimately separates those who want to be successful and who just want to be known. You know what I'm saying? So like for you, when it came to the late nights, you know, when it came to kind of just trying to make your own way, in terms of the next level, I think, because one thing you kind of touched on is like, it's more than just what you do in that moment. Taking every opportunity for what it is, because you never know. You never know who you're gonna meet.
Heavy on the who you're gonna meet.
Who you're gonna meet.
It's not always about like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might just like, and she can attest to that. Sometimes it's just gonna be a situation where you just gonna be like, listen, can I just tag along? You just tag along, you throw some clothes on, you're there, and the next thing you know, you're
just
meeting
see what
Jamil.
happens.
You're
Meeting
meeting
Jamil.
Jamil and Mustafa.
Yes.
Like that was
Literally
was
story time, y'all.
like that was literally
Yes, because
you
I
know.
said, you know, I said Nia's one of like my mentors, but when I say that, I mean she pushed me to say, they said no, but you can say yes. Clear as day example.
Like you don't have the address, just show up.
Just show up. Like, I wanted to be a part of a panel hosted by Jamila Mustafa, you know, also DSU alum, extraordinaire on MTV Live, doing her thing. Y'all, look her up, check her out. And everybody that I was cool with, including Nia, Chelsea, everybody is in this room for this panel. And I was like, yo, Nia, like, I really want to go. Like, I didn't send the email quick enough. And she's like, okay. Okay, like
put on some clothes.
Put on some clothes. I told you where it's at. Just show up. Like
yeah.
Literally show up. So what did we do? I showed up. Ended up winning as a camera op to just work behind the camera. Ended up being on
Sitting in for lighting,
being on the panel, which then turned into going to New York to be on an episode of SiriusXM. And that and that more than anything showed me that like opportunities are not going to just knock on your door and say, do you want to come? Like, because had I not taken that, because I've talked about like friendships and being in circles with people who are constantly pushing you. Had I not had that push, I probably would have never did it. I probably would have sat there and been like,
First symposium too. I
Like,
mean, it's been
this girl right here, man. This girl right here. And so I also want to talk about, you know, we talked about taking it to the next level, but also enjoying the process. I just graduated, class of 2023. Shout out 23. And I think for those who are just graduating, those who are graduating, you know, you've gotten your feet a little more sturdy. You know, we try to still figure it out over here. And in terms of enjoying the process, like what would you say was one of like the biggest realizations for you to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just go with the flow and see what happens? Because I feel like for me, I've always been like, okay, what am I doing? What's next? Like I have to do something. Like I can't just sit here. And I think it's understanding that, but still like you always tell me, enjoy the process. Like, so like, what does that mean to you? And how did you take those steps kind of for yourself?
I think the biggest lesson for me in terms of enjoying the process had to come after I graduated. I graduated, and, you know, was expected. I had this big, long resume. Like, I'm going to get in. I'm going to apply to all these jobs. Like, I'd already worked at NBC 10. I was like, I'm going to get a job easy, and didn't have a job for pretty much the entire summer after I graduated, and was depressed the entire summer because
That's real.
I'm used to like having my hands in stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm having fun with my friends. I'm attending concerts and all this other type of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, when you stop like educating yourself mass comm wise, like nothing else stops. Like I don't know if y'all see like social media.
Oh,
we
yeah.
got Threads now. We got
Yeah.
Spill. We got Twitter.
something
We
new
got
every
all
day.
it's like 10,000 like different apps that are coming out, and that waits for absolutely no one. Whether you sign up for the app or not, there's gonna be creators on there that are going to get to that app first. And so for me, like I was spending the whole summer like just like applying for jobs and not getting any of them. And I think the one thing that I had to do was just say, listen, I just need to just be a young adult.
Yeah.
And that's where I ended up, applying for Apple and working Apple and actually working some retail. And I feel like that actually has helped me kind of get to where I am now, because it's made me a better communicator. It's made me a better problem solver when it comes to dealing with people, whether that's in a workspace, you're working at Masscom or you're working McDonald's. Like it just helps you kind of be able to understand people and enjoy people for what they are and what they're doing, and knowing that everybody out here is just trying to hustle the same
trying to make
way
it. Yeah.
that I'm trying to hustle. Like all my friends at Apple now, like I still hang out with them all to this day.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't gone to Apple, I wouldn't have those sorts of connections that I have now.
Yeah.
And so like for me, that's where I just had to kind of like take a step back and really focus on what was important, and that was just at the time just making money, keeping myself busy, not having to keep myself busy in a way where I'm feeling like I need to do mass communication stuff
All day,
24/7,
right.
but just keeping myself busy in a way where I'm like, okay, I need to do something that I know I like to socialize. I know I
Right.
like to talk, but I also know that I need to keep myself active and
Right.
not be locked up in the house
Stagnant,
all day
right,
like
right.
the pandemic. Like
Oh.
I needed to figure that out. And
Yeah.
so that was really my first step, is like looking outside of mass communications. That was
Just
my
to
first
get
step to kind of be kind of happy a little bit.
And I think sometimes people don't realize you do need that. Like it doesn't have to just be, okay, straight out of college, NFL, going to Atlanta, doing everything. Like sometimes you have to take that second to just be still. Like people said to me, I've done a little bit of a lot. And people are like, okay, so what you doing this summer? Where you interning? What you doing? Nothing. Nothing on purpose. That's what I've been saying. Nothing on purpose, because I'm going to run myself dry. I need to just stay true to what I want to do and who I am. Like, this podcast is cool, but on the side, like I'm still trying to figure that out for myself.
Right.
But like you said, just even realizing, okay, stuff might not be moving right now, but you were dedicated to the fact that you knew you were going to get where you wanted,
Right.
but you had to start somewhere to get what you're going. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in our generation, they just want the end result. They just want to work for the NFL. They just want to be the famous rapper. They just want to be, that person, the Kardashians, and just everybody follow every move they do. But they don't want to take that time to sit in the studio every single day, or work at Apple for a couple months to build up your money, so
Right.
that when you get the opportunity
Right.
to take that jump, you have the funds, you have the resources, you have the social capacity to be able to do that. And I feel like that's a core point, because I think a lot of the time we put so much pressure on ourselves. And I was talking to Chelsea earlier today because I was talking about, especially as a generation, I feel like respectfully, to those who have kids, my daddy hate kids young. Love y'all. Love the young parents out here. Y'all doing y'all thing. Y'all taking care of your babies.
Heavy on that.
But I ain't having no babies right now.
Heavy
I'm
on
not
that.
doing it. And as a generation who, we're graduating as young women, and we're moving on to like the next step of our lives, and kind of just, continuing that part, like not putting so much pressure. Like, I don't have no kids I gotta pay no bills for right now. Like, it's okay for me to just work at Apple for a little bit.
It's
just
okay for you
chill.
to just figure it out.
Figure it
It's okay
out.
for you to just like figure it out.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be like perfect with a little period at the end. Like, no, it's okay. It could be chicken scratch with a comma. Like you could put that comma there, because the sentence is just gonna continue. Like it doesn't always have to be so cut and dry all the time. Like sometimes it's just like better to just go with the flow. And sometimes it's just better to just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Honestly.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks. And I think sometimes beyond our own pressures, we have those pressures of family, parents, friends. And I think that's also sometimes hard to navigate too, because, if we start from scratch, My daddy said I should be a dermatologist or a lawyer, and I'm not doing neither one of those. So, no pressure to it, but it's like, there's so many, especially when you're someone who works so hard. Everybody's coming at you like, so why aren't you doing this? So why aren't you doing that? So why aren't you doing this? Well, why aren't you taking this internship? Well, why aren't you going out there? Well, why aren't you doing this? And it's like, I feel like in the age group we're at now, we have every right to just take a second to chill. And I didn't say be stagnant. Nobody
You didn't
said
say be lazy.
Nobody said be lazy. Nobody said sit on the couch every day and wait for somebody to message you back on Indeed. By the way, they don't read those resumes. And for you to just get something that like just comes in your face, like, it's not gonna work like that. Like, you have to work. You have to, I think that's been the biggest thing we're talking about. Like, nothing's gonna be handed, and especially with the pressures of your family, like, especially in our field, those type of opportunities, you got to know somebody that knows somebody, but you got to put the work in and show up and be there.
Right.
Like, nothing's going to be handed to you. Nothing's going to be offered. So I think that really brings us to the point of, we're talking about the willingness to learn, like, overall, like, with our generation, like, how does that, I'll say even just sentence, like, when you hear willingness to learn and you think about those here in 2023, like, what do you think about? Because I think lazy. I think lazy in the sense of a lot of people just like, we have stuff that's easily accessible, but like, I'm making videos on my phone, but I'm researching all day, every day, how to make it the best quality video that I possibly can. So when I hear willingness to learn, I feel like I said, everybody wants the end result, but nobody wants to learn to be the best.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind for me, and this is for anybody, this isn't just like willingness to learn for like our specific, this is for anything, because this has been coming up a lot, is the word priorities. Because the biggest thing that I feel like Nyla and I have got on each other about this.
Oh, yeah.
Is the words, I don't have the time.
Ooh.
I don't have time. I was doing this. I was doing whatever.
But what
like,
were you doing?
But like, okay, but like you had the time to work on you. I'm not saying it's anything that, you have the time to like sit with me and do whatever. I'm saying, okay, Nyla, you were sitting there watching Love Island, watching Love is Blind. Okay, you could have had your laptop open. Okay, like, you didn't have the time to fix your resume, and now you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and so now they're like, okay, well, send me your resume. What do you have to tell them? Oh, I have to wait and fix my. No, have it together. Have it ready.
Nobody's waiting. That's one thing.
How are your priorities? How are your priorities set up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've come across a lot of people, not just
that's a good one.
not just at Dell State, but in a lot of sectors where they'll reach out to me and they'll be like, listen, how do you do this? Can you help me? Can you help me apply for this job? Can you help me do whatever for this? Okay, so what research have you done for this job? So how have you prepared for the interview? So like, did you take that 5 or 10 minutes to do something? Not like everybody has to be like Nyla, but she's the type that'd be like, okay, listen, just call me for 2 minutes real quick. I'm just gonna shoot you my resume. Just look over it.
Yeah.
Do you did you do that? Was that a priority for you?
Right.
Or did you just want to say like, oh yeah, I have the resume. So like when I meet whoever, I'm just gonna apply.
Right. And just
like,
let
no,
it be.
you don't have no LinkedIn set up. You don't have no portfolio.
You got Threads, but no LinkedIn.
Like, you don't have no portfolio. What? You don't have like, how is your priorities together? Like, you're turning in this resume to this job, to CBS, to CNN, and on your resume said you worked at McDonald's.
But it's even stretching that. I worked in customer service, fulfilling the needs of those customers to the full capacity.
How are you going to make what you have already work?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. How are your priorities set up? You have the time to be on Instagram and you're posting and you're on vacation, you're in Tulum, you're in Hawaii, you're in wherever. But at the same time, then you come back and what are you doing? You sitting at home. Your priorities obviously wasn't together. Not saying you can't take that trip.
Right.
And not saying what we were just saying, you can't relax and spend time for you.
Right.
And not saying that there's such thing as a work-life balance, because honestly, there really isn't. But at the same time,
you're putting everything you have into it.
That's what I'm saying.
And the people who are, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference from somebody who took their time, who did the research, who put the work in, versus somebody who said, let me just, here you go. And I think priorities, that was a great point, because you can prioritize going out with your friends and, you know, getting messed up every weekend, but can't prioritize sitting down, and you haven't adjusted your resume since 2016. You haven't really applied for any jobs, followed them on LinkedIn, because that's the other thing, priorities. Like, taking that step to go out your way. I applied for a job. I got an interview. I researched the lady who was interviewing me. I researched the corporation. I researched the CEO. I researched everybody, so if they ask me a question, they know she's serious. And like you said, willingness to learn. A lot of people don't put learning and getting better as a priority, or even asking questions, just going up to people, hey, this is my name. When we went to New York, they didn't walk in that room saying willingly they were going to invite us to an episode. Like, we're going up to them like, yeah, you know, I think Ananda had said, I applied for an internship. She's like,
Yeah,
follow
she
up
did.
with us. Then, you know, we're following up. I said, I'll get everybody's information on a piece of paper, send it to the publicist. We sent it. They're like, actually, we want to have y'all up here. Closed mouths don't get fed. That brings me to my next point. Like, we talked about, you know, people just wanting it, the priorities, but like, if you don't ask the question, you don't introduce yourself, you don't put yourself out there, you're never gonna get to the place you want to. But I think you have to understand that, to know, like, and that's in any field. That's not just mass comm. Like, especially as a person of color, you have to go out your way even more. You have to overshadow all the competition. I know with you know, working for the NFL and that not being, you know, the players dominate, you know, in that aspect, but the people behind the scenes don't. So like, you know, what's that experience? Kind of just dealing with some of those, like, just preset, like, do you know what you're doing? But now you're having to kind of be like, oh, babe, I know what I'm doing and more. You ain't checked my credentials, I want to end me. Like, yeah, because I'm sure that could be a thing, especially within that field. Like, not even the, you know, NFL, the corporation, but even just like the response of society. Like, I saw that they posted something with the those who were persons of color who was on the team, and the comments are like, okay, well, what about everybody else? Well, how come they're just showcasing those who are, you know, within the Black community? Why are we not showing everybody? Because everybody always gets showcased, but we have to show that this group of people can and will do it. Like,
Yes.
how did you even feel about like all of that in the midst of it too?
How did I feel about the
Responses
like the
of
like the Instagram response? So we had gotten it had even gotten to the point, I think, where like the actual like official NFL and like Inspired Change page had like turned the comments off, because we had went to the Black Sports Business Symposium in Atlanta, and they had posted us saying, you know, NFL, you know, gives, or the NFL shows up at the Black Sports Business Symposium and kind of talks about like why we were there. Because a lot of us were there for different reasons. Some were panelists, some were there for recruitment purposes. I was there kind of for like recruitment purposes, but also kind of like learning and engaging and networking purposes. And that was really just supposed to be like a symposium just for us, just for like the Black entertainment engagement network is what they call it at NFL. And a lot of people in the comments were like, that was the first time where they were like, don't look at the comments. And I looked at the comments and it was like, they were very rude and nasty about like, oh, so like we're saying it's change for all and like we're inspiring all, but like we're only doing these things where we're segregated. Like they were using words like segregation and like we were being racist because there was only like one white man in the picture with all of us. And what I want a lot of them to understand is like, you know, these like getting opportunities for us in those spaces are difficult. Even when it comes to production, you're looking at the NFL and you're looking at these teams where all of these players are players of color or mostly players of color. And then all of the owners, like the
owners
chiefs,
of the
everything,
team, all
of them, not players of color.
Right.
All of them, it's in the family.
Right.
Yeah.
It's passed down from
It's
generation
passed down
to generation to generation. We
generation.
don't have that as the Black community. So
It's
we
all
get a
nepotism.
right. So we get a post and now it's the end of the world, and that's insanity. And I feel like, but I applaud you and I applaud those who went out there and did your thing, because representation matters.
Yes.
And somebody did see that and say, oh my God, I can work for the NFL, and oh my God, I can work for the NFL as a Black woman. Because that's a big thing too, especially being a woman in sports. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? And I thank you for coming here and doing your thing and talking with us today. And as always, we, as my first guest, me and Nia had so much fun chatting with y'all today. And I can't wait to see y'all on the next episode.